I thought I had everything. The kind of everything you post about on social media, knowing your friends will hate you a little for it. Successful business, gorgeous husband, that house with the kitchen island everyone covets. I believed it too, until exactly 9:17 p.m. on our 5th wedding anniversary. "You need to see this," Lily whispered, her fingers digging into my forearm as she pulled me away from my own party. The concern in her eyes made my stomach drop before I even knew why. I followed her through the crowd of well-wishers filling our open-concept living room, champagne sloshing in my glass. Todd had gone all out for our anniversary. Caterers, a small jazz quartet, flowers everywhere. He'd even made a toast that had me blinking back tears 10 minutes earlier. "Can't this wait?" I asked, forcing a smile at Clayton as we squeezed past. "We're about to cut the cake." Lily didn't answer, just pulled me into Todd's home office and shut the door. The music became a dull thrum through the walls. "I wasn't snooping," she started, which is exactly what people say when they found something while snooping. "I came in here looking for more napkins where you said they'd be, in the credenza." "And?" My voice sounded normal. Everything was still normal. "I found this instead." She held out her phone, open to a banking app. Todd left his laptop open. This was on the screen. I squinted at the numbers, trying to make sense of them. "I don't understand." "It's a transfer, Heidi, from your business account to some offshore thing. $500,000. The room tilted slightly. "That's impossible. I'd know if that kind of money. There are dozens of transfers. Small enough to fly under the radar, I'm guessing. Going back months." I snatched the phone, scrolling through the transaction history. My throat closed up as the evidence mounted. All those nights Todd had helped with the bookkeeping. All those times he'd assured me everything was fine when I worried about cash flow. "There's more," Lily said, her voice gentler now. "I took screenshots." She swiped to another image, an email thread between Todd and someone named Daisy Ford. My Daisy, my head of sales. The wife doesn't suspect anything. 2 more months and we'll have enough to make the move. "What about the business?" Daisy had replied. "She'll be too busy dealing with the audit to notice we're gone." "Audit? What audit?" "I'm sorry," Lily whispered. "I didn't know how to tell you." The glass slipped from my fingers, red wine spreading across the beige carpet like blood. 5 years of marriage, 8 years together. And all this time, "Heidi," Todd's voice called from the hallway. "Babe, where'd you go? Everyone's waiting." I looked up at Lily, panic rising in my chest. "What do I do?" "Don't let him know that you know," she said quickly. "Not yet. Not until we figure out how much he's taken and what this audit thing is about." The doorknob turned. I kicked the wine glass under the desk and wiped my eyes. Todd appeared, handsome in his tailored suit, that smile I'd fallen for lighting up his face. "There you are. What are you two hiding in here for?" "Girl talk," Lily said smoothly. "I was just telling Heidi about this guy I met." I forced myself to smile, to step forward and slip my arm through his like I'd done thousands of times before. His body felt suddenly unfamiliar against mine. "Sorry, honey. You know how Lily gets when she's crushing on someone." Was my voice steady? Could he tell? I studied his face for any sign that he knew I'd discovered his betrayal, but saw only the same Todd I'd always known. That was the most terrifying part. "Well, crush later. Everyone's waiting for the anniversary cake cutting." He kissed my temple, and I suppressed a shudder. 5 amazing years, right? 5 years of lies. 5 years of him systematically stealing from me while I worked myself to exhaustion building my company. "Right," I echoed, letting him lead me back toward the party, Lily following close behind. As we emerged into the living room, our friends erupted in applause. Todd raised our joined hands triumphantly, playing the role of devoted husband to perfection. The knife waited beside our anniversary cake, 3 tiers of white chocolate and raspberry that I'd specially ordered from his favorite bakery. I looked at the knife, then at Todd's smiling face, then back at the knife. "Speech," someone called out. Todd squeezed my hand, oblivious to the storm raging inside me. "Want me to do it, or you?" I reached for the knife, wrapping my fingers around the handle. "Oh, no," I said, meeting his eyes. "I think it's my turn to cut something." I somehow made it through the rest of the party, smiled for photos, thanked guests for coming, kissed Todd on cue when everyone clinked their glasses. My face ached from the performance. "You okay?" Todd asked as we waved goodbye to the last guests around midnight. "You seem off." I forced another smile. "Just tired. It was a lot to take in." "I know what you mean." He wrapped his arms around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. 5 years. Sometimes I can't believe how lucky I am. The audacity. I wanted to scream, to confront him right there, but Lily's warning echoed in my head. "Don't let him know until you understand what you're dealing with." "I'm going to clean up," I said, pulling away. "Leave it for tomorrow. The cleaning service is coming anyway." He tugged at my hand. "Come to bed." The thought of lying next to him made my skin crawl. "I just need a few minutes to decompress. I'll be up soon." Once he disappeared upstairs, I collapsed onto the couch, my body finally giving in to the trembling it had been suppressing all night. My phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "Call me when you can. I'm worried about you." Instead of calling, I found myself moving through the house collecting evidence. I grabbed Todd's laptop from his office, along with the files he kept in his desk drawer. In the kitchen, I poured myself a large glass of wine and spread everything across the island counter. The laptop was password protected. Of course, I tried our anniversary date, his birthday, my birthday. Nothing worked. After the 5th attempt, I stopped, afraid of triggering a lockout. I turned to the files instead. Most contained ordinary household documents, insurance policies, car maintenance records, warranties. Nothing suspicious. But in a folder labeled Tax Prep, I found something odd. A second set of financial statements for my company with numbers that didn't match the ones I reviewed monthly. The doorbell rang, startling me so badly I knocked over my wine glass. Who would be coming by at 1 a.m.? I peered through the peephole to see Lily standing on my porch, hugging herself against the night chill. "I couldn't sleep," she said when I opened the door. "I kept thinking about your face when you saw those transfers." I pulled her inside quickly. "Todd's upstairs. He thinks I'm cleaning up." "Has he said anything?" "Nothing. He's acting completely normal." I led her to the kitchen, showing her the documents I'd found. "Look at this. These aren't the real numbers for my company." Lily studied the papers, her brow furrowed. "It looks like he's been keeping 2 sets of books. One for you, one for something else." "The audit," I whispered. "He mentioned an audit in those emails. What if he's setting me up to take a fall for tax fraud?" The realization hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just about stealing money. He was creating a paper trail that would implicate me. "Heidi," Todd's voice called from upstairs. "Who are you talking to?" Lily and I froze, staring at each other in panic. "It's just Lily," I called back, quickly gathering the papers. She forgot her phone. Heavy footsteps on the stairs. I shoved the documents into Lily's purse just as Todd appeared in the kitchen doorway, wearing only his pajama bottoms. "Hey, Lily," he said, seeming genuinely surprised. "Everything okay?" "Sorry to drop by so late," she replied smoothly. "Left my phone somewhere in the chaos. Heidi found it for me." I held up her phone as evidence. She'd actually left it on purpose, anticipating this might happen. Todd yawned. "No problem." "Heidi, are you coming to bed soon?" "In a minute." After he retreated upstairs, Lily gripped my hands. "You need help, professional help." "What, like therapy?" I almost laughed. "No, like someone who knows how to handle financial fraud. I have a friend, Warren. He's a private investigator who specializes in this kind of thing." "A private investigator? Isn't that a bit extreme?" Lily's expression hardened. "He's stealing your money and setting you up to take the blame for his crimes. How much more extreme does it need to get?" She was right. The Todd I thought I knew, the man who supported my dreams, who celebrated my success, was a fiction. The real Todd was systematically destroying everything I'd built. "Okay," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "Set up a meeting." After Lily left, I stood in our kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of our anniversary celebration. 5 years of what I thought was love, reduced to a criminal conspiracy. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step requiring deliberate effort. Todd was already asleep, his breathing deep and even. I slipped into bed beside him, keeping to the edge of the mattress. Tomorrow I'd meet with Warren. Tomorrow I'd begin to understand the full scope of Todd's betrayal. Tomorrow I'd start planning how to save myself. But tonight, I lay awake beside the stranger I'd married, plotting my first move in a game I never wanted to play. I met Warren at a coffee shop 15 miles from my house, far enough that I wouldn't run into anyone I knew. He didn't look like a private investigator, no trench coat, no world-weary expression, just a middle-aged man in a sensible blazer with kind eyes and a firm handshake. "Lily filled me in on the basics," he said after we'd settled at a corner table. "But I need to hear everything from you." I'd barely slept, spending the night rehearsing what to say to Todd in the morning. I'd settled on a half-truth, a supplier emergency requiring my immediate attention. He'd kissed me goodbye without a hint of suspicion. "My husband is stealing from my company," I said, the words still feeling surreal. "And I think he's setting me up to take the blame for tax fraud." Warren didn't react with shock or pity. He simply nodded and took out a small notebook. "Walk me through what you found so far." I showed him the screenshots Lily had taken, described the falsified financial statements, explained the references to an audit. With each detail, the knot in my stomach tightened. "How much do you think he's taken?" Warren asked. "I don't know exactly. The transfers Lily found total around $500,000, but there could be more." Warren whistled softly. "And your company, how's it doing financially?" "We're profitable, growing steadily." I twisted my wedding ring, a nervous habit I suddenly couldn't stand. I slipped it off and dropped it into my purse. At least I thought we were. "Who handles your accounting?" "I have a bookkeeper, Esme. She's young but brilliant. Todd. He reviews everything before it goes to our accountant." My voice caught. I trusted him. Warren's expression softened. "That's not your fault, Heidi. People like your husband count on that trust." "People like my husband," I repeated. The phrase felt like a slap. "What do we do now?" "First, we need to understand the full extent of what he's done. I'll need access to your business records, bank statements, tax filings, everything." My phone buzzed with a text from Daisy. "Need to discuss Q3 projections. Lunch today?" Daisy, Todd's accomplice, my supposed friend and colleague. I showed Warren the message. "She's working with him. I saw the emails." "This could be an opportunity," Warren said, leaning forward. "Meet with her. Act normal. See what information you can get." "You want me to spy on her?" "I want you to protect yourself. Right now, information is your best defense." I agreed to meet Daisy at 1 p.m., then spent the next hour giving Warren every password, account number, and business detail I could remember. By the time we finished, I felt hollowed out. "One more thing," Warren said as we prepared to leave. "Don't confront Todd yet. People get desperate when cornered, and desperate people make dangerous choices." The warning sent a chill through me. I'd known Todd for 8 years, married him, built a life with him. Was Warren suggesting he might hurt me? "I need to get to my office," I said, suddenly needing to be somewhere familiar, somewhere that still felt like mine. The fashion design studio that served as headquarters for my company had always been my sanctuary. Today, it felt like enemy territory. Who else was involved in Todd's scheme? Who could I trust? Esme looked up from her computer as I entered. "Morning, Heidi. I wasn't expecting you today." Esme had joined the company 3 years ago as an intern and quickly proved herself indispensable. At 28, she managed our books with meticulous attention to detail. If the numbers were being manipulated, wouldn't she have noticed? "Just catching up on some things," I said, trying to sound casual. How are the new collection numbers looking? Strong. The fall line is already generating pre-orders. She hesitated. Actually, I've been meaning to talk to you about something. My guard immediately went up. What is it? Some of the financial reports seem off. Nothing major, just discrepancies I can't reconcile. She lowered her voice. I tried mentioning it to Todd last week when he came by, but he said not to worry about it. My heart raced. Todd was here. He doesn't usually visit the office. He said he was surprising you with lunch, but you were in a meeting. He asked to use your computer to check some numbers. Esme looked uncomfortable. I should have told you sooner. I fought to keep my expression neutral. It's fine. What kind of discrepancies did you notice? Expense allocations that don't match our actual spending. Vendor payments to companies I can't verify. She pulled up a spreadsheet. Like this one, 3 payments to Meridian Consulting. I can't find any record of services they provided. Meridian Consulting. The name meant nothing to me, but the payments totaled $75,000. Thank you for showing me this, I said, my mind racing. Let's keep this between us for now, okay? I need to look into it further. Esme nodded, relief visible on her face. I was worried I was overstepping. Never. This is exactly what I need to know. As I headed to my office, my phone buzzed with another text, from Todd this time. Hope your day's going better. Dinner tonight? I have news to share. News. What news could he possibly have that wasn't another lie? I texted back, looking forward to it. The ease with which I could now lie to him surprised me, but then I'd had an excellent teacher. Lunch with Daisy felt like the strangest performance of my life. We sat at our usual spot, a bistro 2 blocks from the office, while I pretended I didn't know she was helping my husband steal from me. The anniversary party looked amazing, Daisy said, spreading her napkin across her lap. Todd really outdid himself. I took a sip of water to steady myself. He's full of surprises. Speaking of surprises, she continued, I've been running some numbers on the expansion plan. I think we should accelerate the timeline. The expansion plan had been my dream for years, opening 3 new boutiques in key markets. Todd had always encouraged it, but now I understood why. More locations meant more money flowing through the business, more opportunities to siphon funds. I'm not sure that's wise, I said carefully. The current economic climate is perfect, Daisy interrupted. Interest rates are low, and our brand recognition has never been higher. She pulled out a folder. I've already drafted a proposal for the board. I stared at her, this woman I'd trusted with my business secrets for years. How long had she been working against me? What was her angle? That's very proactive of you, I managed. Todd thought so too. He's been incredibly helpful with the financial projections. Of course he had. I forced a smile. You've been talking to Todd about this? Just getting his input. He has such a good head for business. She tilted her head. Is that a problem? No, not at all. I just like to be kept in the loop. Daisy's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then quickly turned it face down. Sorry about that. Was she texting Todd right now? Updating him on our conversation? The thought made me feel physically ill. Actually, I said, seizing an opportunity, I noticed some unusual payments to a company called Meridian Consulting. Do you know anything about that? The briefest flicker of something, alarm, guilt, crossed Daisy's face before her professional mask slipped back into place. Meridian, I believe they helped with market research for the expansion. Todd handled that contract. A lie. I'd run every market research project personally. Right, of course, I said. I must have forgotten. The rest of lunch passed in a blur of small talk and business discussions that now felt hollow. When we parted ways outside the restaurant, Daisy hugged me like always. We're going to do great things together, she said. I wondered if she meant her and me, or her and Todd. Back at the office, I shut my door and called Warren. Meridian Consulting, I said without preamble. I need to know everything about them. I'm already on it, Warren replied. Esme sent me the payment records this morning. I froze. Esme contacted you. How does she even have your number? I reached out to her after our meeting. You mentioned she handled the books, so I figured she'd be a valuable resource. You went behind my back? My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. I'm trying to help you, Heidi. We need all the information we can get as quickly as possible. I pressed my fingers to my temples, feeling a headache forming. You should have asked me first. Would you have said yes? The question hung between us. Would I have, or would I have hesitated, worried about involving another person, expanding the circle of those who knew how thoroughly I'd been deceived? That's not the point, I said finally. The point is, Esme already suspected something was wrong. She's been documenting discrepancies for months. She's on your side. I thought about Esme's relief when I hadn't dismissed her concerns. Had she been carrying this burden alone, afraid to speak up? Fine, I conceded. What did you find out about Meridian? It's a shell company, registered 6 months ago to a P.O. box. No website, no employees, no actual consulting services. Let me guess, Todd's name is on the paperwork? No, it's registered to someone named Clayton Mitchell. Clayton. My stomach dropped. Clayton had been friends with Todd since college. He'd been at our wedding, at our anniversary party just days ago. I'd always liked him. That can't be right, I whispered. I'm sending you the documentation now. My email pinged. There it was, Clayton's name on the incorporation papers for a company that existed solely to funnel my money into someone else's pocket. There's something else, Warren continued. Esme found emails between Todd and Clayton discussing a property purchase, a beachfront villa in a non-extradition country. The room seemed to tilt. They're planning to run. It looks that way. And soon. I thought of Todd's text. I have news to share. Was tonight when he planned to spring some new lie on me, some story to explain why we suddenly needed to take a vacation to a country that wouldn't send him back to face charges. What do? I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. We accelerate our timeline. I've already spoken with a forensic accountant. She can start tomorrow if you authorize it. Do it, I said without hesitation. And tonight, with Todd. I'll play along. Make him think everything's normal. After hanging up, I sat at my desk, staring at the framed photo of Todd and me from our honeymoon. We looked so happy, so in love. Had it all been an act? Or had he loved me once, before greed took over? I removed the photo from its frame and tore it in half, separating his image from mine. It felt childish, but also necessary, a physical representation of what was happening to my life. My phone buzzed with a text from Todd. Made reservations at Luciano's for 7. Wear that blue dress I love, giving me instructions, always controlling the narrative. I texted back, perfect, can't wait to hear your news. This time, the lie came easily. The blue dress hung on the back of my office door, like a costume for a role I no longer wanted to play. Todd's favorite, fitted, low-cut, the color he said made my eyes pop. I'd worn it countless times to please him. Tonight, it felt like armor. I applied makeup carefully, covering the shadows under my eyes, evidence of sleepless nights. My phone buzzed with a text from Lily. You don't have to do this. Stay with me tonight instead. But I did have to do this. I needed to know what Todd was planning. Luciano's was where we'd had our first date. The hostess greeted me by name, leading me to our table by the window. Todd was already there, standing when he saw me approach. You look beautiful, he said, kissing my cheek. I smiled, wondering if he could feel how rigid my body had become at his touch. Thanks for arranging this. It's been a while since we've had a date night. Too long. He pulled out my chair. I ordered that Barolo you love. The wine arrived, deep red and expensive. I sipped slowly, needing to keep my wits about me. So, I said, you mentioned you had news? Todd's face lit up with what looked like genuine excitement. I've been working on something big. A surprise. My heart raced. Was this it? The lead-up to his escape plan? I know how hard you've been working, he continued, how much the business means to you, and I think I've found the perfect opportunity to take it to the next level. The waiter interrupted to take our order. Todd ordered for both of us without asking what I wanted, a habit I'd once found charming. What kind of opportunity? I asked when we were alone again. An investor? Someone willing to put serious capital into your expansion plans? He leaned forward. We're talking 8 figures, Heidi, enough to open not just 3 new locations, but 10. I nearly choked on my wine. 10? That's not the plan. Plans change. This is huge. His eyes gleamed. I've been working on this deal for months. Didn't want to say anything until it was solid. Months. The same time frame as the mysterious transfers. Was this investor real, or just another fiction? Who is this investor? I asked. His name is James Westfield, made his fortune in tech, looking to diversify. Todd reached for my hand across the table. He wants to meet you next week. I've already set everything up. A meeting that would never happen, because Todd would be gone by then, taking my money with him. That's incredible, I managed. How did you connect with him? Clayton introduced us. They go way back. Clayton again. The pieces were falling into place. Speaking of Clayton, I said carefully, I ran into him today. He mentioned something about a consulting company. Todd's expression didn't change, but his hand twitched slightly in mine. Oh? Meridian Consulting. He said you might know something about it. A beat of silence. Todd withdrew his hand to reach for his wine glass. They did some market analysis for us a while back. Small firm, but good work. The lie slid out so smoothly. Had he always been this good at deception, or had I just never noticed? Funny, I don't remember approving that contract. It was during that crazy period when you were finalizing the spring collection. I handled it so you wouldn't have to worry. He smiled. That's what partners do, right? Share the load. The food arrived. Seafood risotto for him, salmon for me. I pushed mine around the plate, stomach too knotted to eat. You're quiet tonight, Todd observed. Everything okay? I met his gaze. Just thinking about the future. How quickly things can change. Change is good, especially when it means growth. He reached across the table again, squeezing my hand. Trust me, this investment is going to change our lives. At least he wasn't lying about that. I do have one concern, I said. The business is growing so fast. I worry about losing control. That's natural, but you can't do everything yourself forever. His thumb stroked my wrist. Sometimes you have to delegate, let others handle the details. Like the financial details he'd been handling for months. You're right, I said, forcing a smile. I need to learn to let go. Todd raised his glass. To new beginnings. I clinked my glass against his, the sound sharp in my ears. To getting what we deserve. I called Warren from my car after dinner, hands shaking so badly I could barely dial. It's happening, I said when he answered. The investor story, Clayton's involvement, it's all part of their exit strategy. Did he mention when this supposed meeting is happening? Next week, but I don't think they're planning to stick around that long. I swallowed hard. There was something in his eyes tonight, Warren, a finality, like he was saying goodbye without actually saying it. Where are you now? Parking outside our house. Todd's meeting Clayton for drinks. Good, I need you to do something while he's gone. Warren's voice was steady, grounding. Check his office again, look for travel documents, confirmation emails, anything that might tell us when they're planning to leave. And if I find something, then we move now, tonight. I ended the call and sat in the darkness, watching the house I'd once loved, the home we'd built together. Had any of it been real? My phone lit up with a text from Esme. Found something big. Need to talk ASAP. Whatever Todd was planning, it was happening fast, and I was running out of time to stop him. I met Esme at an all-night diner 30 minutes from my house, a place where neither Todd nor anyone else from our circles would accidentally spot us. She was already there when I arrived, hunched over her laptop, dark circles under her eyes. "Thanks for coming," I said, sliding into the booth across from her. "I wouldn't have texted if it wasn't important." She turned her laptop toward me. "I've been digging through our cloud storage backups, found these emails that Todd deleted from the server." The screen showed an exchange between Todd and Daisy from just that morning. "Everything's set for Friday. Tickets confirmed. Clayton has the documents ready. Friday, 2 days from now." "What about H?" Still suspicious, clueless as ever, too busy with her precious designs to notice what's happening right under her nose. By the time she figures it out, we'll be long gone. My hands curled into fists, clueless. The contempt in those words burned through me. "There's more," Esme said quietly. "Financial projections for the company after you're gone. They're planning to liquidate everything, Heidi. Sell off the inventory, the equipment, the intellectual property, even the building, my life's work. Everything I'd built from nothing, reduced to numbers on a spreadsheet." "How long have you known something was wrong?" I asked. Esme looked down. "I started noticing discrepancies about 4 months ago. Small things at first, expense reports that didn't match receipts, invoices for services we never received. I thought they were mistakes." "Why didn't you come to me sooner?" I tried in my way, but Todd always intercepted. "Said you were too busy, that he'd handle it." She met my eyes. "And then he offered me a promotion, more money, more responsibility. I think he was trying to buy my silence." "Did it work?" "I took the promotion," she admitted, "but I also started keeping records. I knew something wasn't right." The waitress came by with coffee. We fell silent until she left. "What are you going to do?" Esme asked. What could I do? In 2 days, Todd would be gone, along with my money and any chance of justice. "I'm going to stop him," I said with more confidence than I felt. Todd was asleep when I got home, his breathing deep and even. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, watching him. How many nights had I lain beside him, feeling safe, protected, loved? All while he plotted to destroy me. I slipped into his office, closing the door silently behind me. The room smelled of his cologne and the leather of his desk chair. I'd always loved this smell. Now it made me nauseous. I started with his desk drawers, then moved to the filing cabinet. Nothing unusual, no plane tickets, no incriminating documents. Todd was too smart for that. His laptop sat on the desk, closed. I opened it, heart pounding, still password protected. I tried a few more combinations, his parents' names, his childhood street, before remembering something. For his birthday last year, I'd given him a vintage watch. He'd been obsessed with it, even had the serial number engraved on the back. I typed in the number. The screen unlocked. For the next hour, I combed through his emails, documents, browser history. Most were innocuous, but in a folder labeled Investment Opportunities, I found what I was looking for. Confirmation of first-class tickets to Bali. One way. Departing Friday afternoon. Not just for Todd, but for Daisy too. My hands shook as I took photos of the screen with my phone. Not just business partners then. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd expected. I was about to close the laptop when a new email notification appeared. From Clayton, sent just minutes ago. Change of plans. Audit flags raised. Need to move timeline up. Details in mourning. Audit flags. Someone had noticed the financial irregularities. The authorities might already be involved. I quickly forwarded the email to myself, then closed the laptop exactly as I'd found it. As I turned to leave, the office door opened. Todd stood there, sleep-rumpled and confused. "Heidi, what are you doing in here?" My mind raced. Looking for aspirin. Couldn't sleep. "In my office. I didn't want to wake you by turning on the bathroom light." I moved toward the door. "Sorry, I'll look somewhere else." He blocked my path. "You were on my computer." "What? No, It's still warm." His voice hardened. "What were you looking for?" "Nothing. I told you. I just..." "Stop lying." He grabbed my arm. What do you know? The mask had slipped. This wasn't the charming, supportive Todd I'd married. This was the real Todd. Cold, calculating, dangerous. Let go of me, I said quietly. Not until you tell me what you're doing. I know about the money, Todd. The transfers. Meridian Consulting. All of it. His grip tightened. You don't know what you're talking about. I know about Daisy, the tickets to Bali, your plans to liquidate my company. Something flashed in his eyes, surprise, then anger. Who have you told? Everyone. It was a bluff, but a calculated one. Lawyers, accountants, the police. Did you really think I wouldn't notice $500,000 missing from my accounts? He released my arm, taking a step back. You're making a mistake. The mistake was trusting you. I moved past him toward the door. I want you out of my house, tonight. This is my house too. Not for long. I turned to face him. You have 1 hour to pack your things. After that, I'm calling the police. Todd's laugh was cold. With what evidence? You think anyone will believe you over me? I've covered my tracks, Heidi. Every transfer, every document, it all has your digital signature. The realization hit me like a physical blow. He hadn't just been stealing from me. He'd been framing me. 1 hour, I repeated, my voice steadier than I felt. Or I release everything I have to the press. How do you think your investor friends will react to that? As I walked away, my phone buzzed with a text from Warren. Don't confront him alone. Wait for me. Too late for that. The game had changed. And now there was no turning back. I locked myself in the guest bathroom, hands trembling as I called Warren. He knows, I whispered. I confronted him. He's threatening to frame me. Where are you now? Warren's voice was tight with concern. Still at the house. I told him to leave, but a crash from downstairs cut me off. He's destroying things. Get out of there. Now. I'm 20 minutes away. Another crash, followed by Todd's voice too close. Heidi, we're not finished. I don't think I have 20 minutes, I said, my voice barely audible. Is there somewhere safe you can go until I get there? I thought quickly. Lily's place. It's 5 minutes away. Go, I'll meet you there. I ended the call and texted Lily. Emergency. Coming over. Todd knows. Her response was immediate. Doors unlocked. Come straight in. I crept to the bathroom window. It was small, but I could fit through. The drop to the ground wasn't far. As I pushed it open, Todd's footsteps thundered up the stairs. Hiding won't help, he shouted. You've ruined everything. I squeezed through the window, scraping my hip on the frame, and dropped to the ground. Pain shot through my ankle, but I forced myself to run, car keys clutched in my hand. My car was parked on the street. I slid behind the wheel, started the engine, and peeled away just as Todd burst out the front door. Lily was waiting at her door when I arrived, pulling me inside and locking the deadbolt behind us. Are you hurt? She asked, noticing my limp. Just twisted my ankle. I'm fine. I wasn't fine. Nothing was fine. I called the police, she said, leading me to her couch. They're sending someone. I sank onto the cushions, the adrenaline that had carried me here beginning to fade. He's going to say I'm crazy, that I'm the one stealing money. Let him try. Lily handed me a glass of water. Warren called. He's bringing evidence. What evidence? I don't know exactly. He just said it was enough. I took a shaky sip of water. Todd said every transfer has my digital signature. How am I supposed to fight that? Lily sat beside me. By being smarter than him, which you are. A knock at the door made us both jump. Lily checked the peephole, then opened it to admit Warren, carrying a laptop and a thick folder. Are you all right? He asked me. No, I answered honestly, but I'm here. Warren set his materials on the coffee table. I've been building a case, tracking the money, documenting the timeline, but we need to move fast. The tickets to Bali, they're for tomorrow, not Friday. What? But the email said, misdirection, in case you were watching. They're flying out tomorrow afternoon. My stomach dropped. Then it's over. They'll be gone. Not if we act now. Warren opened his laptop. I've arranged a meeting for tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. With who? James Westfield. I stared at him. The investor, he's not real. No, but Todd doesn't know that we know that. Warren smiled grimly. I have a colleague who's going to play the part. Todd thinks he's meeting his fictional investor. Instead, he'll be walking into a trap. Another knock at the door, more insistent this time. Lily checked the peephole again. Police, she said, opening the door. 2 officers entered, a man and a woman. The woman spoke first. We received a call about a domestic disturbance. My husband threatened me, I said. I had to escape through a window. The male officer took notes while I explained the situation, the stolen money, the threats, the evidence of Todd's plan to flee the country. Has he physically harmed you? The female officer asked. He grabbed my arm, hard enough to leave bruises. I pushed up my sleeve to show the red marks. We'll need to take a statement, she said, and photographs of those bruises. As they documented my injuries, my phone buzzed repeatedly with texts from Todd. You're making a terrible mistake. I can explain everything. Come home and we'll talk this through. Then, more ominously, you have no idea what you've started. I showed the messages to the officers. He's escalating. We can escort you back to collect some belongings, the female officer offered, and file for an emergency restraining order. Thank you, but I'm not going back there tonight. I looked at Warren. We need to prepare for tomorrow. After the police left, Warren outlined his plan. The fake investor meeting, the evidence we'd present, the trap we'd set. What if he doesn't show? I asked. He will, Warren assured me. The prospect of one last score before he disappears, he won't be able to resist. And Daisy, Clayton, they'll be there too. All the players in one room. I thought about Todd's face when I confronted him. The cold anger, the contempt. He'd never loved me. I'd been nothing but a means to an end. I want to be there, I said, face to face. Warren hesitated. It could get ugly. It's already ugly. I met his gaze steadily. This is my life he tried to destroy, my company. I need to look him in the eye when it all falls apart. Lily squeezed my hand. Are you sure? No, I wasn't sure. I was terrified. But beneath the fear was something stronger, a determination I hadn't known I possessed. Tomorrow morning, I said, 9 a.m. I'll be ready. The conference room at Warren's office was deliberately intimidating, all glass and steel, with recording equipment visible in the corners. I sat at the head of the table, dressed in my most powerful outfit, a folder of evidence in front of me. Warren stood nearby, speaking quietly into his phone. They've arrived, bringing them up now. My heart hammered against my ribs. In moments, I would face the man who had betrayed me in every possible way, the woman who had helped him, the friend who had chosen the wrong side. Are you ready? Warren asked. I thought about all I had lost, and all I still had to fight for. I'm ready. The door opened. Todd entered first, his confident smile faltering when he saw me. Behind him came Daisy, then Clayton, the 3 people I had trusted most in the world. What is this? Todd demanded. Where's Westfield? I stood, steadier than I'd felt in days. There is no Westfield, Todd. There never was. His eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? I think it's time we all told the truth, I said. Don't you? The silence in the conference room felt electric. Todd recovered first, his smile returning. That same charming, confident smile that had once made me feel special. Heidi, sweetheart, this is ridiculous. He turned to Warren. I don't know what she's told you, but my wife has been under tremendous stress lately. Her business is doing exceptionally well, I interrupted, despite your best efforts to drain it dry. I opened the folder in front of me, sliding documents across the table one by one. Transfers to offshore accounts, falsified financial statements, emails between the 3 of you planning your escape. I looked at each of them in turn. Did I miss anything? Clayton shifted uncomfortably. Todd, what is she talking about? She's making this up, Todd insisted. Clayton, you know me. Would I do something like this? Like register a fake consulting company to funnel money through? I pushed another document forward. Meridian Consulting's incorporation papers with Clayton's signature. Or book one-way tickets to Bali for you and Daisy. Daisy's face drained of color. Tickets for both of us? Interesting. She hadn't known about that part. First class, I confirmed. Very romantic. Todd's composure slipped. This is absurd. I want my lawyer. Excellent idea, Warren said, speaking for the first time. In fact, I've taken the liberty of contacting the authorities. They're very interested in speaking with all of you. Clayton stood abruptly. I had nothing to do with this. Todd asked me to sign some papers for a business venture. That's all. Sit down, Clayton, Todd snapped. She's bluffing. There's no evidence. I pulled out my final document, a report from the forensic accountant Warren had hired. Every transaction, every email, every falsified document, it's all here, including the ones with my forged signature. Todd's eyes darted toward the door. This is a waste of time. I'm leaving. I wouldn't, Warren said mildly. There are federal agents in the lobby. Todd froze. For the first time, real fear crossed his face. You can't prove anything, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Actually, I can. I nodded to Warren, who pressed a button on his phone. Todd's voice filled the room. Every transfer, every document, it all has your digital signature. My own voice followed. 1 hour, or I release everything I have to the press. The recording continued, capturing every damning word from our confrontation the night before. You recorded me? Todd's face contorted with rage. That's illegal. Not in our state, Warren replied. Single-party consent. Daisy stood, her professional mask crumbling. I want immunity. I'll testify against both of them. Daisy? Todd looked betrayed. What are you doing? Saving myself. She turned to me. It was his idea, all of it. He said you'd never notice, that you were too trusting. That's enough, Clayton interrupted. No one say another word until we have legal representation. Too late. The door opened, and 2 agents entered, followed by a woman in a business suit who introduced herself as a prosecutor with the Financial Crimes Division. What followed was a blur of legal terms and procedures, statements taken, rights read. Todd, Daisy, and Clayton led away separately for questioning. Through it all, I sat perfectly still, watching the life I thought I had dissolved before my eyes. Hours later, I stood alone in the empty conference room, staring out at the city below. Warren entered quietly, closing the door behind him. They're being processed now, he said. The prosecutor is confident they have enough for an indictment. I nodded, still looking out the window. What happens to my company? It's yours, Heidi. It always was. The forensic accountant has already begun untangling the financial mess. You'll need to work closely with her, but your business will survive this. And the money they took? Some can be recovered, not all of it. He paused. I'm sorry. I turned to face him. Don't be. Money can be replaced. What will you do now? The question hung in the air. What would I do? The future I'd planned, the life I'd built with Todd, was gone. Yet standing here, I felt lighter than I had in months, maybe years. First, I'm going to change the locks, I said. Then, I'm going to call Esme and offer her that promotion for real. Warren smiled. And after that? I don't know yet. I gathered my things, suddenly eager to leave this room, this building, this chapter behind. But for the first time in a long time, I get to decide. The house felt different when I returned, emptier, but somehow less hollow. I moved through the rooms, reclaiming each space. In Todd's office, I found a framed photo of us I'd missed before, taken on our honeymoon. I studied his face, searching for signs of the deception to come. There were none, or perhaps I simply hadn't wanted to see them. My phone rang, Lily checking in. How are you holding up? I'm okay, I said, surprised to find it was true. Actually, I'm thinking about redecorating. Bold move. What did you have in mind? I looked around at the house Todd had largely designed, with its neutral colors and minimalist aesthetic, nothing that truly reflected me. Everything, I said. I'm changing everything. After we hung up, I wandered into the kitchen where it had all begun, where Lily had shown me those first damning transfers on our anniversary night. The remnants of the party had been cleared away, but a single champagne flute remained on the counter, forgotten. I picked it up, turning it in my hands. 5 years of marriage, 8 years together, a lifetime of memories, now tainted. With deliberate care, I placed the glass in the sink. Then I opened a drawer, pulled out a notepad, and began to write. Not a list of what I'd lost, but of what came next. At the top, I wrote, things that are actually mine. The business, this house, my designs, my future, and most importantly, the truth. No one could take that from me again.
My name is Alice, and I'm a 48-year-old housewife. I live with my husband's family in their ancestral home. We have a daughter who is currently in her 4th year of university. She chose to live in a strict dormitory far from home to lessen the burden on us, which I admire. Our household includes my 74-year-old mother-in-law, my husband, me, and my 53-year-old sister-in-law, who is unmarried. My mother-in-law often questions what I do all day since I'm not formally employed, which can be quite disheartening. Despite her age, she doesn't hold back on her sharp comments. And sometimes, I wonder if her becoming meaner over the years is just a part of aging. From my experience, older people can be incredibly kind or quite harsh, with little middle ground, which might be shaping my view of her behavior. My sister-in-law also lives with us. She's older than me and works part-time, choosing not to marry and instead live rent-free at home while spending her earnings on herself. Though she contributes occasionally to household expenses, it's a minimal amount. Her work history includes a stint at a small company right after high school, but she left under problematic circumstances and has since preferred the flexibility of part-time work. What makes living together challenging is not just the financial aspects, but also the interpersonal relationships. My sister-in-law often looks down on me for being a housewife, considering it a lowly position. She makes snide remarks about my day-to-day activities and questions my capability, suggesting I am not doing enough or implying that I'm at the bottom of society. These comments are hurtful, but I try not to let them affect me. I know she has her struggles too, having had to quit her full-time job under difficult circumstances. Navigating this household's dynamics can be tough, but I focus on maintaining peace and supporting my family as best as I can. Despite her own problematic history at work, my sister-in-law had the nerve to criticize me. She accused me of quitting my previous job due to issues, which isn't true. I defended myself, making it clear that I wasn't the problem. Unlike her, I've never caused harm or acted with malice. During our conversation, she tried to justify her actions by saying she only gave advice to a colleague who then felt overwhelmed and portrayed her as the villain. From what I know of her, she likely did come across as too forceful, and I ended up feeling sorry for her colleague. It's probably for the best that she's no longer in that environment, considering how difficult she can be. Living with her has been quite challenging, and honestly, I dislike not just my sister-in-law but also my mother-in-law and even my husband at times. I've thought about divorce more than once, but have hesitated because of my age and the complexity of our family situation. They all seem to have difficult personalities, making everyday interactions draining. One night highlighted the tense atmosphere. My mother-in-law noticed a light on in my room late at night and peered in to ask what I was doing. When I told her I was working, she skeptically remarked that it didn't seem like I could accomplish much from home, although she added a half-hearted encouragement to do my best. I work from home, and because I'm busy with household chores during the day, I often find myself working late into the night. The quiet of the night aids my concentration, and I know I'm not alone in this nocturnal habit. Many famous writers also prefer the night for their creative processes. Amid these challenging family dynamics, a serious issue arose. My mother-in-law had mismanaged her finances to the point of nearing bankruptcy. When she revealed that she was $160,000 in debt, panic set in. She was overwhelmed by the amount and feared bankruptcy. The idea of declaring bankruptcy seemed almost a relief compared to the financial abyss she was facing. Yet, in her desperation, she implied that I could help pay off her debt, suggesting that my earnings should cover it. This assumption placed an even greater strain on our already fraught relationship. Back when I was younger, I worked hard and built a career that was quite impressive. I earned a salary of $60,000 at a major company, which was more than many men made at the time. Now, years later, my mother-in-law, facing a financial crisis, remembered my old earnings and saw me as a potential solution to her problems. She pointed out my previous salary and expressed her expectation that I would help. Reluctantly, I agreed to pay off her debt, but I set a condition to balance the responsibilities at home. I proposed that if I took care of the debt, she should take over some household chores. I would handle the heavier tasks, but she could manage the dishes and lighter cleaning. This arrangement would allow me to focus on my work during the day, even if it meant working with headphones on to block out distractions. My mother-in-law agreed to this deal quickly, and so I took on the burden of repaying her $160,000 debt. After all that effort, my daughter noticed my fatigue and asked if I was okay. I assured her I was fine, but my mother-in-law started complaining to her about being overworked. She told my daughter that since I was paying off her debt, I was making her do too much housework, essentially treating her like a slave due to her age. My daughter confronted me, upset about how I was supposedly treating her grandmother. She accused me of abusing my mother-in-law by burdening her with chores. I tried to explain that I only asked her to do manageable tasks and not the heavy lifting she was claiming. But then, my mother-in-law exaggerated, saying I was making her carry heavy laundry and buy lots of groceries, things I had never asked of her. The situation escalated when she accused me of taking advantage of her situation to strike a harsh deal, claiming that I was not actually productive or earning money, just pretending to work. She called me just a housewife, or worse, a slave, diminishing all my contributions and efforts. The accusations hurt deeply. I never intended for my attempt to manage our financial crisis to lead to such conflict, or to be seen as taking advantage of my mother-in-law's age. It was a painful misunderstanding, and I felt very misunderstood and saddened by the turn of events. I never demanded excessive labor from my mother-in-law. However, she seemed to deliberately play up her frailty. She would struggle visibly with heavy items, giving the impression that I was overworking her. Witnessing this, my sister-in-law misunderstood the situation and thought I was imposing too much on her. It dawned on me that my mother-in-law was manipulating the narrative to make herself look like a victim. I tried to discuss this with my husband, but he remained silent and uninvolved. Disappointed by his lack of support, I felt increasingly isolated within my own family. My daughter, who lives far away, was more understanding. When I confided in her about considering a divorce, she encouraged me to proceed swiftly. Strengthened by her support, I decided to file for divorce and began preparing for a new beginning. As the moving day approached, I packed my belongings, planning to take only what was mine. Everything I had bought with my own money, from furniture to home appliances, I loaded into the moving van. This included cherished items like the furniture I had purchased when I was single and the appliances I had invested in over the years. This prompted a big commotion among my in-laws. They protested as I prepared to take the vacuum cleaner and microwave items I had paid for and primarily used. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law seemed to think these items belonged to the family simply because they were used in the home. Similarly, my husband objected when I started packing the bookshelf that I had bought, which he had filled with his books. I cleared it out and added it to the van. By the time I was done, the house was nearly empty except for a few pieces of furniture like the dining table, living room sofa, and the beds. Even the dressers used by my mother-in-law and sister-in-law were ones I had purchased, which I decided to take and possibly sell at a recycling shop, hoping to recover some money. Just as I thought the upheaval was at its peak, the police arrived. The sudden appearance of law enforcement shocked my mother-in-law and the rest of the family. They hadn't anticipated any legal issues arising from my departure. As tensions escalated, I reassured them that I had done nothing illegal, unlike some others. This veiled reference to illegal activities confused my mother-in-law momentarily until she realized I was alluding to her involvement in a pyramid scheme, which was the real reason behind her financial ruin. She had been recruiting friends and acquaintances into this scheme, leading her into deep debt and now, unexpectedly, to legal scrutiny. I'd always been curious about the abundance of cardboard boxes scattered throughout our house, but it wasn't until I opened them that I discovered they were filled with a variety of items, all of dubious value. There were teas and supplements whose health benefits were questionable, along with pots and pans. Among these, the most lavish purchases were crystal balls and bracelets, which, according to the sales pitches, were supposed to bring good fortune. My mother-in-law had been taken in by these claims, spending endlessly on these products from an organization she believed in. Despite the promises, these items only succeeded in driving her deeper into debt, contributing to the shocking total of $160,000. The situation escalated when it became clear that she had been using aggressive tactics to involve others in buying these products, which I learned when I discovered evidence of forced recruitment, including recordings and videos of her activities. Despite her protests and cries that she was just an old lady being unfairly targeted, the police were unmoved. They insisted that age doesn't exempt anyone from the consequences of criminal actions. As a result, my mother-in-law was arrested and taken away right in front of us, despite our family's pleas. After she was taken into custody, I left and drove to what would be my new home. It was a modest space, perfectly sufficient for one person. I knew my daughter would only visit occasionally, so a large place wasn't necessary. This marked the beginning of my new life, a fresh start that was both liberating and daunting. Yet, the financial loss weighed heavily on me. I had given my mother-in-law $160,000 to help her out of her financial mess, and now, with her having been fined less than $5,000 for fraud and unable to even pay that, she was under considerable stress. I knew she must be feeling overwhelmed, but I needed to reclaim that money. Neither her daughter nor my ex-husband showed any willingness to help her with the fine, and it appeared she'd even sold the house under the pressure of her financial obligations. Despite my reluctance, I realized I had to confront her once more. I was determined to get back the money I had unwillingly handed over, feeling deceived and taken advantage of. So, I decided to visit her again, this time at a relative's house where she had taken refuge. I was prepared to demand the return of my $160,000, the money I had never been happy to part with in the first place. When I found out that my mother-in-law had moved in with relatives who were taking care of her, I decided to visit. I needed to address the financial issues stemming from her actions that had impacted me directly. Upon arriving, I confronted her straightforwardly. "You sold the house, right? So, you must still have some money from the sale?" Caught off guard, she hesitantly admitted, "Well, yes, I do have some money." I pressed further. "How much? Please, be honest." She revealed the land and the house together fetched $160,000. It was a prime location, so despite its age, it sold for a good price. Hearing this, I firmly stated, "Then I'll need you to return the $160,000 that I paid to help you out of your previous debt." Her response was one of surprise and reluctance. "What? That's impossible. I was saving that money for a new apartment." Unmoved by her plans, I questioned her integrity. "You're planning to buy a new apartment? How can you consider such a thing while you're still caught up in wrongful deeds?" Confused, she asked, "What wrongful deeds?" I brought up another sensitive issue. "Aren't you involved with Mr. Thomas from our neighborhood? I've heard rumors." She stuttered. "Wait a minute." I continued, aware of her vulnerability since her husband had died when she was 60, leaving her widowed and perhaps lonely. But her actions, especially with a married man, were questionable. "Mr. Thomas is 73 years old. It seems both of you are quite lively." To press my point, I revealed I have a video here as proof. "Would you like to watch it?" Without waiting for her approval, I began playing the video on my phone. It showed my mother-in-law and Mr. Thomas engaged in inappropriate and indiscreet activities in broad daylight, where anyone could see them. I stated, "It's embarrassing to see someone over 74 behaving without any discretion. If you return the $160,000, I'll keep quiet about this to Mrs. Thomas." "What will you do?" "Considering the potential cost of compensation if this gets out, it might be cheaper than returning the full $160,000 you owe me." Realizing the leverage I had, I placed several photos in front of her photos I had printed earlier from my phone. "So even with these photos, what will you say now?" "Let's say hypothetically, compensation costs $9,000 per person affected. For 12 people, that's $90,000. For 22, it's $160,000. And you've been involved with 30 men, haven't you?" She was visibly shaken by my words. I finished with a pointed remark. "You've been quite energetic, despite acting so frail in front of me." This confrontation was a pivotal moment, laying bare the complexities and hidden transgressions within our strained family relations. My mother-in-law turned out to be quite the character, a real femme fatale. Incredibly, she wasn't just seeing Mr. Thomas. She had connections with almost every man in the neighborhood, and all of them were married men still living with their spouses. It boggled my mind how she could manage to maintain relationships with 33 different people. Perhaps she had a schedule Monday with one, Tuesday with another. It was astonishing and frankly quite alarming. Given the scandalous nature of her activities, I saw an opportunity to resolve the financial burden she had placed on me. I confronted her. "Could you return the $160,000 to prevent this scandal from breaking out?" "I know about everything." Terrified of the repercussions, she quickly agreed. I'll pay. Please don't tell anyone. I beg you, forgive me." "All right," I responded. "I expect the $160,000 by next Friday. You can make several transfers if that's easier." She promised to comply, and indeed, she returned the full amount in installments over the next few days. With a deep sense of satisfaction, I returned home, but I wasn't quite done yet. Despite my mother-in-law's belief that I would keep the secret, I decided to expose her deeds for the deceit they were. I sent photos to the wives of the men involved, showing them with my mother-in-law. Soon, her misdeeds were the talk of the neighborhood. When she confronted me, outraged by the breach of trust, she exclaimed, "How could you expose me like that? You said you wouldn't say anything." "I didn't say anything," I countered calmly. "I sent letters. Since I didn't speak directly to anyone, it's still within the bounds of our agreement, right?" She was distraught. "You deceived me. Now everyone is calling me a dirty old woman. What are you going to do about it?" "I'm being sued for damages." "It's hell," I replied somewhat coldly. "Well, perhaps you can manage the payments from your pension, your daughter's part-time income, and your son's salary. Let's all work hard together to pay it off. I'll be cheering for you." She felt mocked and lamented her bleak future. In response, I pointed out, "Well, considering you were already sinking in debt, it seems like you didn't have much of a future to begin with. Whatever happens now is just a new chapter in your life." Eventually, the lawsuits forced her to compensate the aggrieved wives, and she couldn't handle it alone. Her family had to contribute, which led them into poverty. They were even ostracized and driven out by their own relatives, disappearing from the neighborhood. As for me, I continued my work from home, now delving into web developer. It was a shift from my previous job, but I found peace in the quiet hours of the night. The relief of no longer having to deal with the toxic environment at my in-laws' house brought immense happiness. Moving forward, I plan to save money for my own future and for my daughter's eventual wedding, cherishing the freedom and tranquility of my new life. Eloise spoke, her voice tinged with a mixture of relief and accomplishment. "Dad, I'm feeling an immense sense of achievement right now. Today marks the day I finally paid off my home loan." This was a significant milestone for Eloise, who had taken on the loan right after marrying her husband, Miles. They had decided to equally share the burden of a 31-year mortgage. The financial strain was somewhat mitigated because they built their home on land that had belonged to her grandfather. However, the journey was far from easy. Since the birth of her daughter Quinn, who was now a high school student, Eloise's life had been a whirlwind of activity. Balancing housework, raising a child, and managing her work from home for graphic designer job left her with little time for rest. Miles, not adept at household chores, often left the bulk of the work to Eloise. She managed because her home-based job allowed her to stay on top of household duties. In the early years, Miles had offered reassurances. "Don't worry, I'll handle more of the expenses," he'd say, promising to ease her burden. But such offers faded only a few years into their marriage, especially after Quinn's arrival. His attitude shifted dramatically. "It must be easy for you, being at home all day. You probably just nap whenever Quinn isn't keeping you up at night," he would comment dismissively, undervaluing the true effort of her work from home for a graphic designer job. In his view, Eloise's job was a convenient way to make money without much hardship, failing to recognize the real challenges it entailed. Eloise often felt overwhelmed and underappreciated, to the point where she considered leaving Miles. Once, she even broached the subject of divorce, but it led to tears, apologies, and Miles's adamant refusal to separate, especially in front of Quinn. Eloise didn't want to risk damaging Quinn's future prospects, be it her career or her marital opportunities, so she stayed, determined to keep striving for the sake of her family. However, the dynamics within their household took a surprising turn the day she paid off her share of the home loan. They were celebrating this financial milestone together when Miles unexpectedly said, "Eloise, would you mind signing these divorce papers?" This request came just as they were supposed to be rejoicing their hard-won financial freedom. At an upscale restaurant, dressed more elegantly than usual, I was anticipating a delightful evening meal. It was in this sophisticated setting that Miles shockingly presented me with divorce papers. Until that moment, there had been no hint of what was to come. Our conversation had been celebratory and forward-looking just moments before. "Mom, congratulations on paying off the mortgage," Quinn had exclaimed with genuine joy. "Thank you, darling," I replied, smiling at her. "Now we need to start saving for retirement." "Right. We can't just splurge," she nodded understandingly, "especially if I want to study abroad in the future." "I'll help with saving too," Quinn offered. "Just let me know if there's anything I can do." We were discussing our future financial strategies with optimism, relieved to finally be free from the mortgage. It felt liberating to think about speeding up our savings without the loan overhead. Quinn, now a high school student, was mature enough to engage in such substantial conversations, which was profoundly touching to me. Then, out of nowhere, Miles's harsh words cut through the warm chatter. "I can't see you as a woman anymore. Your desperate working puts me off. I can't deal with this anymore. I'm going to marry a younger woman now, so I need you to move out." Quinn and I were left speechless by his abrupt declaration, but Miles continued without pause. "Her name is Sarah. Want to see a picture? Isn't she cute? She's nothing like you, Eloise. Even when I see her work, she's having fun, and she seems to lead a fulfilling life. It's completely different from you." I was stunned, my mind racing. "Wait a minute, Miles. I worked hard to pay off our home loans. Do you know how difficult it is to manage a home-based job and pay off half the loan? And the reason I was always so busy was because of all the housework, right? Because you wouldn't lift a finger. But isn't housework a woman's job? I'm not good at it anyway," Miles retorted, dismissive of the effort I had put in. "I wasn't good at housework either," I shot back, "but I worked hard for the sake of our family. We just completed our loan payments. This was supposed to be our new start, right? Why would you say something like that now?" I remembered the distant past when I had suggested divorce, and he had begged me to stay for Quinn's sake. "When we bought the house, I brought up divorce, but you refused. You said we have Quinn, so don't leave me." The conversation at the restaurant, meant to be a celebration, turned into a heartbreaking revelation of Miles's changed heart and intentions. Miles's response, delivered with a look of irritation despite our fine surroundings at a beautiful restaurant, was shocking. The atmosphere, once pleasant, turned decidedly sour. Can't do anything about it, right? Young women are just more attractive. You having money is appealing, but your winning attitude has always been a bit much, he bluntly stated. Dad, that's awful. You're being disrespectful to Mom. Apologize, Quinn interjected, her voice filled with disappointment and anger. Miles, unfazed, continued. Quinn, you might not understand yet, but Eloise should, right? Women are just like appliances, the new ones perform better, and everyone wants the new ones, right? The comparison was too much. Comparing me to an appliance? That's just too disrespectful. Well, I no longer have any feelings for you, so isn't it natural that something disrespectful comes out? Miles's words stung deeply. And about not getting a divorce for Quinn's sake, yeah, I might have said something like that at that time. But that was just an excuse, he admitted, as if such a confession had no weight. Miles continued, unloading his harsh views before I could respond. Back then, I thought bringing up Quinn's name would stop you from divorcing me. But the truth is, I wasn't thinking about Quinn at all. I just refused to divorce so that I could keep someone who does household chores for me. How could you say such things in front of Quinn? You're her parent. That's not how you should be, I protested, unable to hide my shock and hurt. It doesn't matter if I'm a parent or not. I always put myself first. Sacrificing yourself for a child is self-fulfillment, Miles declared, his words more unbelievable by the moment. I had always known Miles to be selfish, but I had never expected him to so blatantly disregard his responsibilities as a parent, especially in front of our daughter. Well, listen, I do feel bad for leaving a woman your age. So I'll give you all of our assets, Miles offered, as if this was a generous concession. Dad, what are you saying? You just told her to leave, Quinn protested, her tone incredulous and pained. That's why I'm saying I'll give her the money, but in return, I'm taking the house, he said, attempting to appear magnanimous. Division of property? Why should Mom pay? Shouldn't you be the one paying for the division of property since you've been fooling around with a younger woman? Quinn challenged him fiercely. That's not how it is, Quinn. Your mom has her faults too, Mileson attempted to justify, but his words only deepened the divide, revealing his true priorities and leaving us both bewildered and hurt by his selfishness and lack of empathy. Sitting across the table, Miles, slightly inebriated, made a mocking toast. Let's consider the reasons for the division of property, perhaps the crime of not staying attractive enough, and oh, let's not forget the crime of prioritizing her daughter over her husband. He laughed loudly, the sound grating against the solemn atmosphere of the evening. Quinn, visibly angered by Miles's flippant attitude, clenched her fists. Despite her turmoil, I felt an eerie calm, or perhaps it was just a numbness, as if my mind couldn't fully grasp the absurdity unfolding before me. Miles's words seemed surreal, like those of a stranger. He says he'll give me all the money, but since we focused so much on repaying the loan, there isn't much left. Instead, he gets the house. And his reasons? Because I supposedly lost my attractiveness and put Quinn first. I mused internally, the logic failing to connect in any rational sense. As I wrestled with thoughts of seeking legal counsel and possibly involving our families, Quinn's voice cut through the tension. By the way, Dad, is that young woman you've been seeing from about 5 stops away on the subway? It's Sarah, isn't it? A bit older than me. You met her about 5 months ago, right? Miles, startled, stammered, "What are you talking about?" Why would you know something like that? Unfazed by her parents' surprise, Quinn continued, her eyes not leaving her smartphone. Well, a friend's dad was recently caught up in a similar situation. A woman approached him out of nowhere, but unlike you, Dad, he consulted his wife immediately. They figured out the woman's intentions and managed to avoid any trouble. He was wise, wasn't he? Quinn, what do you mean? How dare you speak to me like that? Miles's voice rose in a mix of indignation and disbelief. I'm just stating the facts, Quinn replied calmly. And that family had its own issues. Their marriage got tense, but they handled it. What's important here is that this Sarah seems to target men who are already involved with someone else. Miles, growing more defensive and agitated, demanded, "What are you implying about Sarah?" "I won't tolerate anyone speaking ill of her. Not even you," he threatened, his expression darkening. Despite Miles's menacing demeanor, Quinn remained composed and showed us her smartphone screen. "Look at this," she began as she flipped through photos. "The first one shows her approaching my senior from the club. The second one..." Her voice trailed as she displayed evidence of Sarah's repeated behavior, highlighting a pattern that was hard to dismiss. At the dinner table, Quinn revealed unsettling details about Sarah to her father, Miles. Both of them have girlfriends, yet she told them, "Look at me, not your girlfriend." "What does that tell you, Dad?" "It means she's a woman who likes to lure men away from their partners." Miles appeared visibly shaken by Quinn's words, standing silent for a long minute as he processed the accusation. When he finally spoke, it was with a desperate defensiveness. "She's not like that. Don't spread such lies. I love her, and Sarah loves me too. What would you know about these things? You're just a high school student." "Even as a high school student, I understand more than you think, Dad. The real issue here is your reasons for wanting a divorce because Mom prioritized her daughter and didn't stay attractive enough? Are you joking?" "That's just absurd," Quinn retorted, her tone a mix of sarcasm and frustration. Miles, increasingly flustered, shot back, "How dare you talk to your father like that? You're being disrespectful." "Dad, it's you who's being disrespectful," Quinn countered calmly. "Asking for alimony for such ridiculous reasons. Isn't the property under Mom's name? She's been the one managing our finances, covering living expenses, and doing the bulk of housework. If you really want a separation, you should be the one compensating Mom, not the other way around. You should even pay her back the full land price and be the one to leave the house, especially since you've been involved with Sarah." At Quinn's firm stance, Miles seemed lost for words, perhaps realizing deep down that he was at a disadvantage, but unwilling to admit it. His face reddened as he protested. "You're just saying all this because you don't want your parents to get divorced. You're claiming my beloved Sarah is a homewrecker. That lie won't work on me. Sarah has told me I'm her destiny." "Yay, whatever," Quinn responded, disinterested in her father's rebuttals and instead looking excitedly at the menu, contemplating what to order next. Meanwhile, Miles continued to vent his frustration, his voice growing louder. "Sarah and I are meant to be together, and you are just trying to sabotage us. I could sue for defamation too." "Really? I didn't know that." "Wow, you seem to know so much because you're not a high school student, huh?" "Well, since you're so confident, why don't we involve a lawyer? You believe you're right, don't you?" Quinn challenged, her tone sharp. "But I don't think Mom could accept these kinds of absurd claims, right?" "Well, yeah," she concluded, leaving Miles grappling with the reality that his daughter wasn't going to easily accept his narrative or decisions. In the face of such bizarre arguments, I realized no one could truly win. How could anyone stay married to a man who made such outrageous claims? I had felt utterly shaken at first, but watching Quinn confront Miles with such composure had a surprisingly calming effect on me. "Great. Then let's fill out the divorce papers now. We can sign them when we get home, okay? And submit them tomorrow," I suggested decisively. "Afterward, we'll get a lawyer to discuss the division of property." "All right, decision made. Now it's time for dessert," I added, trying to bring a lighter mood to the table. I was still taken aback by Miles's absurd statements, but his words unexpectedly gave me the courage I needed. No matter who Sarah was, I realized that my love for Miles had irrevocably faded. He couldn't remain a part of our lives after this debacle. "Okay, I'm signing it," I declared, taking the divorce papers Miles had brought to the restaurant. We signed, then the three of us silently enjoyed our dessert and left the establishment. The next day, Quinn and I accompanied Miles to City Hall to submit the divorce papers. This action marked the dissolution of our marriage, and soon after, Miles and I began living separately in serviced apartments, with Quinn choosing to stay with me. Time passed, and each of us hired lawyers to start discussing asset division. no lawyer would support Miles's absurd claim that our divorce was due to my lack of beauty or my prioritization of our daughter. As discussions unfolded, it became clear that Miles, who often dismissed Quinn's and my arguments, was much less dismissive when confronted by legal professionals. Eventually, he had to admit his faults. Ultimately, Miles relinquished his claim on our assets, and the divorce was finalized. I gained ownership of the house, including Miles's share. This was largely due to his long-standing neglect of his household responsibilities. It was, undeniably, the best outcome for Quinn and me. Oh, I don't need money. I have Sarah. You guys can cling to that 31-year-old house. I'm starting a new life, Miles declared, trying to maintain his bravado. However, his new start never materialized as he had hoped. Just as Quinn had described, Sarah's interest lay in the thrill of pursuing men who were already committed elsewhere. As soon as our divorce was official, Sarah told Miles she was no longer interested and broke things off with him. This turn of events was a shock to Miles, leaving him bereft of both his assets and his newfound love. In his distress, Miles came back to me, his ego shattered. "Eloise, I'm sorry. Forgive me," he pleaded, but too much had happened, and too much had changed. "Miles, you're saying I'm the only one for you, and you're the only one for me? What are you talking about?" I asked incredulously. "I'm tired of managing all the housework on my own. I can't even be sure I'll keep up appearances in the future, and honestly, I don't need to. More importantly, I've decided to prioritize myself and Quinn from now on." The reality was clear. Reconciling with Miles meant risking another round of unreasonable demands, possibly even having to compensate him again. "There's absolutely no way I can go back to that," I declared firmly. And with those final words, I ended the call. Miles must have been stunned by the decisiveness of my rejection because, from that point on, I didn't hear from him again. That chapter of my life was closed. Quinn and I moved out of the service department and back into our house, which finally felt fully ours after completing the mortgage payments. It was a home now filled with our freedom and decisions, not overshadowed by Miles's presence or his demands. Looking ahead, Quinn's focus was shifting towards her university entrance exams, a significant next step in her life. I planned to support her wholeheartedly, ensuring she had all she needed to succeed. Our lives, now more than ever, were about moving forward, not looking back at what we had left behind. Adeline here, now 29, and it's been 3 years since I tied the knot. Marriage brought me under the same roof as my in-laws, a family known for their lavish spending habits, quite the contrast to my own upbringing. Every day seems to bring a new comment from them about how I carry myself or how I dress. They say things like, "You're really thrifty, aren't you, Adeline?" You even use words like wasteful. That's something only thrifty people would say. Your clothes look inexpensive, and it's clear you choose practicality over style. Your whole demeanor doesn't quite match our family's image. They worry about what the neighbors might think, saying it would be embarrassing if people thought the bride at the Joneses' residence lacked style. Despite their harsh words, I've always valued simplicity and careful spending, traits instilled in me by my grandfather from a young age. He founded the construction company where I work, a place that feels more like a family than a business. I took his lessons to heart, learning the importance of modesty and frugality early on. My mother passed away when I was just in 4th grade, leaving my father and grandfather to raise me. They showered me with love and support, helping me navigate my grief. I poured my efforts into helping around the house and saving wherever I could, earning my grandfather's praise. After he passed away, I started working full-time at the family's civil engineer right out of high school, helping my father. The company, though small, was filled with employees who cared deeply about each other and about me. "Isn't it reassuring to have Adeline with us?" they'd say, welcoming me not just as a boss, but as family. I met Isaiah at our company. He worked for a different civil engineer and began collaborating with us. His frugal nature resonated with mine, and our shared values drew us closer. After about a decade with the company, my father fell ill and passed away, leaving me devastated. Isaiah provided comfort and support during this tough time, and our relationship grew stronger until we decided to marry. Moving in with Isaiah's parents post-marriage was a decision made partly out of necessity. I had no other relatives. Despite the critical comments, living in a lively household was a welcome change. I didn't mind their different lifestyle, though I didn't rush to adopt it myself. I remained happy to live simply, saving rather than spending, a choice that seemed alien to my in-laws but true to who I am and the values I cherish. I was quite taken aback by the brand new electrical appliances that adorned my in-laws' home shortly after I moved in with them. Despite the house itself being quite old, the modern updates were unexpected. I couldn't help but think that if they hadn't spent so much on unnecessary luxuries, they might have been able to afford a new house much earlier. However, I kept these thoughts to myself to avoid any potential conflicts. After my husband and I got married, I made a casual remark questioning the practicality of frequently discarding and replacing items just because newer models were released. This comment seemed to have struck a nerve with my in-laws, who have since labeled me as stingy and conservative. More recently, harsher critiques like ugly and unfashionable have been thrown my way. My father-in-law, who works for a prominent company and earns a substantial income, has made it clear that frugality is a concept alien to their lifestyle. I was once mistaken for a celebrity, believed to be a CEO's daughter, only for them to mock the reality that I am merely the daughter of a humble project manager and not as wealthy. Despite my husband and I both working for major companies, my in-laws continued to berate me for my humble educational background and modest upbringing. My husband remains silent during these exchanges. When confronted, he simply says that my comments are unnecessary and that it's presumptuous for a wife to judge her husband's parents. He shows little interest in the dynamics of his parents' lifestyle, maintaining a stance of non-interference. Although it was never my intention to cause trouble, the negative reactions from my in-laws have made me question whether I spoke out of turn. Despite all this, my husband and I married later in life, at 32, and I had hoped we would start a family soon. However, he doesn't seem as eager, which has led to a standstill on the topic. I believe in letting things happen naturally, so I haven't pressed the issue, especially since our company is bustling and demands much of our focus. Our hardworking employees rely on my leadership, and I aim to live up to their expectations. In the midst of these personal challenges, my in-laws approached us for a loan. "Adeline, could you lend us some money?" they asked casually, as if all the underlying tensions didn't exist. This month, we ended up spending a bit more than usual and found ourselves a little short on cash. "We'll pay you back as soon as we get our next paycheck," became a common refrain from my in-laws. And as these requests became more frequent, I felt compelled to help. At first, it was just small amounts, but over time, the sums grew larger and the delays in repayment became longer. "It's natural for family to support each other," my mother-in-law would say, whenever I gently suggested they start paying us back bit by bit. Out of frustration, I turned to my husband for advice. "I see. I'm sorry this is causing trouble. I'll start working more overtime and together we can handle this," he reassured me. His determination gave me hope, especially when he added, "Once we get through this, I want to seriously start planning our future. I want us to have kids and buy our own house, away from my parents." I was surprised but thrilled to hear him talk like this, so I resolved to push through the current challenges. However, things didn't smooth out as hoped. After some time, my husband disclosed that his parents were on the brink of bankruptcy. "They're really struggling," he confessed one evening. "I've already used up all my savings to cover their debts, but it's still not enough. They're worried about losing their reputations if their financial situation leaks to their company," he continued, his voice tinged with desperation. "I need your help to pay off the remainder of their debt. Can you?" "What?" I exclaimed, shocked. "Please, you have some savings, right? Your father left you a bit of money, didn't he?" he pressed. "Yes, but that money is for our future," I objected. I didn't want to use my father's legacy to bail out my in-laws, especially given their tendency to belittle me for my financial background. I also hesitate to use all the savings I accumulated before our marriage. Besides, Wouldn't your parents feel uncomfortable accepting this money from me? I'll talk to them. If we present it as a loan, I think they'll be okay with it. We can even have them sign an IOU to formalize it, he suggested. But do you really think they'll repay it? I questioned, skepticism heavy in my voice. My father will retire in 3 years and receive a retirement bonus. We could arrange for him to pay it back with that, he proposed. Will your parents agree to this plan? I asked, needing assurance. I'll take responsibility for that. I'll ensure they agree and commit to repaying us with the retirement bonus. Once this is all settled, we're moving out, he promised. Reluctantly, I considered his words, weighing the strained family dynamics against our shared dreams for the future. I've reached my limit with staying at my parents' place. All right, if you insist, I said, fueled by the hope of starting a new life with my husband in our own home. Driven by this dream, I used all my savings to clear my in-laws' debts. Hearing a sincere thank you, Adeline, from my mother-in-law, a woman who had never expressed gratitude to me before, was unexpectedly satisfying. I hadn't just handed over the money, I secured a signed IOU ensuring they would eventually repay me. My husband echoed her thanks, and I thought that if this meant we could finally live by ourselves, free from in-law troubles, it was worth it. However, just a month later, my husband's attitude took a shocking turn. Thanks to you, Adeline, my parents avoided bankruptcy, he began, a statement that initially made me feel proud of my contribution. But then he continued, I used my savings to start building our house, and I took out a loan as well. Confused, I responded. Wait a minute, didn't you say your savings went to your parents' debts? There's no way I'd use my hard-earned savings for that, he replied nonchalantly. I was stunned. So it was acceptable to use my money, painstakingly saved over the years and partly left to me by my father, but not his? I felt betrayed. You told me you were putting all your savings in, so I did the same, I confronted him. Of course I said that. If I hadn't, you wouldn't have used your money, right? You've been deceived. His next words left me completely dumbfounded. It doesn't matter now. Everything has settled perfectly. I'll be living in the new house with my lover, who I plan to remarry, and I'll leave you here to take care of my parent. My mind reeled, trying to process his words. His lover? We were still married, and there had been no talk of divorce. What do you mean by that? I don't understand what you're saying. Why are you talking about remarriage? We're not even divorced yet. And I used my savings to help your parents, I stammered, searching for some sense in his words. I know, and that's why I'm grateful. That's why my parents have agreed to live with you from now on. This means I can enjoy my new married life, he explained, as if it was the most natural conclusion. You've been cheating on me all this time? I asked, the reality of his betrayal sinking in. That's not a nice way to put it. I plan to get married properly. It's a serious relationship, he said, dismissing my feelings as if they were trivial. His cavalier dismissal of our vows and the trust I placed in him left me speechless and devastated. How could the future I envisioned so eagerly have turned into this bewildering nightmare? Well, it's all in the past now. You know we're getting a divorce, right? Otherwise, I can't get remarried. But don't worry, you can keep living here and look after my parents. You've been around them so long and you'll be the one covering the rent, he said with unsettling cheerfulness. The man before me barely resembled the husband I once knew. He seemed like a stranger, and his parents did not object to his plan, which made me feel even more isolated. So, Adeline, I'm really counting on you, he added, as if this setup was a reasonable request. His girlfriend, I learned, was only 17 years old. It'll be too challenging living with someone so young. That's why it's better you stay here, he explained. His parents chimed in. Our bodies are starting to wear out, and it's comforting to have someone at home who can look after us. And yes, we'd like you to handle the housework too. They stood there, agreeing with my husband, blatantly expecting me, his soon-to-be ex-wife, to care for them. I was dumbfounded. They probably knew about Isaiah's affair all along. So I'm going to pack up and get ready to move out. I'll pick up the divorce papers later. All you have to do is sign them, Isaiah said nonchalantly before leaving the room. The shock of his announcement left me reeling. The man I married was remarrying his lover, and I was expected to live here with his parents. The weight of this revelation pressed heavily on my heart. The trust I placed in him shattered, leaving me feeling empty and foolish for having sacrificed my savings for this family. After a while, Isaiah returned, waving the signed divorce papers with a triumphant grin as his parents looked on, seemingly pleased. I stared blankly at the document, but a growing anger began to simmer within me. Why should I be subjected to such unfair treatment? As I held the divorce papers, my initial shock began to dissipate, replaced by a cold resolve. You've been a good help to us. That's what being a wife is all about, but your role ends today, Isaiah declared. Then he dropped another bombshell. Actually, my father has quit his job and spent all his retirement money. He's been going to the casino, it seems. So from now on, you'll be taking care of my folks. He smirked. Was he serious? Did he truly expect me to comply silently? If he believed that, he was delusional. As I watched his smug face, a realization dawned on me. If I continued to tolerate such absurdity, I might indeed lose my own sanity. I needed to reevaluate everything. This was not just about the dissolution of a marriage, but about reclaiming my dignity and steering my life away from this madness. As Isaiah looked down at me, I began to mentally prepare for what would come next. I resolved to firmly show my husband and his parents that they could not manipulate the situation to their advantage. Understood? Well then, everyone, please prepare yourselves accordingly, I said as I signed the divorce papers and stood up. My statement seemed to confuse them. Their eyes widened in shock. However, my husband quickly recovered, flashing a grin. What are you talking about? Have you lost your mind, or are you just bluffing? He scoffed. The one who has lost their mind is you, I retorted. What kind of logic makes you think I would care for your parents after we're divorced? But you have no savings left and nowhere to go, right? You were happy when you married into this family, weren't you? He replied smugly. I thought it would be too cruel to leave you with nothing, so I was gifting you my parents. I'll return that gift. Thank you. And I'll be claiming back the money I put in as well, I countered. There's no way that's possible, he laughed dismissively. You know all the money was used for their debts. My parents have spent every dollar. Nothing is left. I was astounded by how Isaiah could so casually boast about his parents squandering money. Oh dear, how unfortunate. That means you'll have to rely even more on welfare now. No way. All the debts were cleared with your money. But there is an IOU, isn't there? It's just a formality, and since there's no set repayment date, it's up to me when to repay it. In other words, I don't have to pay it back anytime soon, he said, thinking he had an out. Are you an idiot? I shot back. Whether it's just a formality or not, an IOU is still an IOU. If there's no set repayment date, that means the lender can demand repayment at any time. Isaiah's face fell as he realized his misunderstanding. He seemed to believe that an IOU without a specified deadline meant he wasn't obligated to pay back anything at all. Fine then, I'll make my parents file for bankruptcy. That would free them from any obligation to pay, he declared defiantly, thinking he had found a loophole. He seemed to have overlooked a crucial detail. Well, if they file for bankruptcy, your parents might not have to pay. But you still will, I reminded him. The truth was, Isaiah had signed the IOU as his parents' guarantor. It was all his idea. His attempt to sidestep his responsibilities just revealed how desperate he was to avoid accountability. He might have thought he wouldn't actually have to pay, considering it all just a theatrical move to appease me, but such naive tactics were bound to fail. Realizing his oversight left me somewhat grateful for his lack of foresight. Upon breaking the news to him that he was still liable, his face dropped as though the reality had just hit him. It's really thanks to you now. I don't have to suffer in silence, I told him. And at my words, he was visibly shocked. To worsen his predicament, his parents began yelling at him, adamant that they didn't want to file for bankruptcy. He shouted back, each only concerned with their self-interest. Witnessing this selfish chaos, I knew I no longer wanted any part of this family. I walked out of the house without looking back, leaving behind the discord and feeling absolutely no regret. On my way, I stopped to submit the divorce papers I had signed. My childhood home, left untouched since my father's passing, suddenly seemed like a sanctuary. Isaiah had often suggested selling it, but I never warmed to the idea, and now I was thankful I'd held on to it. I consulted a lawyer and demanded that my ex-husband and his family settle their debts. Soon after, a frantic call came from Isaiah. "What the hell is this? I don't know anything about this debt." "But you signed it yourself, didn't you?" "I'm not the one who borrowed it. If the borrower can't repay, the guarantor does." "That's what being a guarantor means, right?" I responded calmly. "I don't have that kind of money. I just bought a house," he protested. "So, do you want to file for bankruptcy? It might clear your debts, but think about what you'll lose: your new house, your car, your savings. You can't declare bankruptcy with those assets. Plus, you'll struggle to get credit for years," I explained. Confronted with reality, he blurted out another ludicrous suggestion. "I get how you feel. If that's how it is, there's no choice. I'll get back together with you." "Excuse me? You think picking a fight with me is your way back into a relationship?" I was dumbfounded. "I'm not heartless. If you feel that way, then I'll marry you again, and all our debts will be cleared, right?" This was beyond reason. I was at a loss for words. Was this what people called blind optimism? Surely this wasn't it. Why did I ever imagine? I trailed off, my thoughts clouded by the absurdity of his proposal. This was not the solution, not a chance. The idea that we could simply reset everything with a remarriage was as preposterous as it was revealing of his true character. After my father passed away, I took over the family construction company, a role that fully occupied my mind. Perhaps that's why my judgment was clouded when it came to my personal life. But with recent events, my clarity returned, and I decided to assert myself further in the legal matters with my ex-husband. Oh, by the way, I mentioned casually when he called, perhaps thinking he could reconcile, "You'll probably receive a call from my lawyer soon. In addition to the money you owe, I'm also seeking a division of our property. And since your girlfriend was around before our divorce was finalized, it's clear you were unfaithful. I'm seeking compensation from her as well. Are you still trying to milk me for money?" "You're so greedy," he retorted, but I was unfazed. "Say whatever you want. I won't be defeated by your words," I replied and hung up. Following this, I instructed my lawyer to handle all future communications with my ex-husband and his family. The property division was still pending, but the debts were cleared. In a twist of fate, my ex-husband had to sell the house he recently bought to cover the debts, yet the loan balance remained on his shoulders. His supposed future wife, infuriated at being sued for compensation, maxed out his credit cards and then left him, plunging him further into debt. He desperately tried to involve my lawyer, but to no avail. Later, my lawyer informed me that my ex-husband began stalking his ex-lover, which led to his arrest. Consequently, he lost his job. Overwhelmed by his spiraling life, he and his parents eventually showed up at my lawyer's office to file for bankruptcy, a process my lawyer managed with a professional smile. The costs associated with the bankruptcy left his family destitute, now residing in a cramped, dimly lit apartment, leading a meager existence. They even tried to apply for welfare but were denied, as the authorities found no reason why 4 able-bodied adults shouldn't work. Even with bankruptcy declared, compensation wasn't exempted, so they had no choice but to work hard. Meanwhile, I moved back into my renovated childhood home and immersed myself back into the business. The support from everyone at the company has been overwhelming post-divorce. They have stood by me, helping in various ways, reinforcing my resolve to appreciate my employees and continue working diligently while saving money. This ordeal has taught me the importance of resilience and the value of a supportive community. Shortly after the student walked into the restaurant, I noticed he was heading straight for the counter seats without using the hand sanitizer placed at the entrance. I gently reminded him to sanitize his hands first. Ignoring my request, he proceeded to sit down. When I urged him again, the student retorted sharply, telling me to shut up because he had just washed his hands. His abrupt response left me quite taken aback, and the incident quickly captured the attention of other patrons, casting a sudden silence over the place. One customer even took to social media to complain, noting how our restaurant seemed overly insistent on hand sanitation, which they found annoying. This was echoed by another online comment about being scolded for the same reason, which led to an unpleasant exchange with the staff. Soon after, a video surfaced online showing a cockroach on our counter, allegedly crawling into a bowl of ramen. The person titled it "Delicious Cockroach Ramen," suggesting malicious intent through a potentially doctored image. This act was utterly despicable. Filled with anger and frustration from these unfounded accusations and harmful actions, I was determined to address this injustice. This restaurant, which had become a significant part of my life, was under attack, and I felt compelled to protect it. My name is Mia, a 38-year-old living with my husband, Mateo, of the same age, my mother-in-law, and our daughter Lily, who is in the 2nd grade. Mateo and I met during our sophomore year of high school and reconnected years later at culinary school. After we married, I chose to focus on raising our daughter while Mateo took over his family's Chinese restaurant following his father's passing. This restaurant wasn't just a business to us. It was a part of our family's legacy, which we cherished and were now determined to defend. Mateo and I always cherished the sumptuous dishes from his father's restaurant, and it was our shared passion for this culinary heritage that led us to manage the restaurant together. One day, a young university student approached us, seeking a part-time job. He was in his 2nd year at a nearby university and expressed a deep fondness for our food, eager to be part of our team. Initially, we hesitated since our budget was tight and we couldn't really afford extra help. However, his determination was touching. He even offered to work for less than usual. Sensing his genuine appreciation for our food, I decided to give him a chance. This young man was Aiden. Aiden came from a modest background, raised by a single mother who was physically disabled and relied on a scholarship to attend university. Each evening after his shift, he would order a meal to take home. Curious, I once asked him about this routine. He explained that his mother adored our Chinese cuisine, but couldn't visit the restaurant due to her condition, so he brought the food home to her. Touched by his story, my husband Mateo began preparing double portions for him to take home, free of charge. We both felt it was important to share the joy of our dishes with as many people as possible, especially those who appreciated them so much. Amid these warm exchanges, a contrasting incident occurred. A blonde college student entered the restaurant and headed straight for the counter, ignoring my reminder to use the hand sanitizer provided at the entrance. When I insisted, he retorted rudely, leaving me startled and the restaurant silent. I had never experienced such confrontation, and it left me momentarily paralyzed with fear. From the kitchen, Mateo addressed the student, reinforcing our hygiene policy. Reluctantly, the student complied, but not without showing overt disdain. My nerves were still rattled, so Aiden stepped in to take his order, showing solidarity and support. The student ordered ramen immersed in his smartphone and departed with a smug smile after eating. Lately, we've noticed a decline in customers. Initially, I thought it might be due to COVID-19, which had indeed reduced our foot traffic somewhat. But considering we were the only Chinese restaurant in the area and had a loyal base of regular patrons, the drop wasn't as steep as feared. It was clear that the restaurant still held a special place in the community, supported by those who cherished not just our food, but the warmth and care we put into serving in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We had implemented several safety measures at our restaurant, including thorough sanitizing routines and installing acrylic barriers on each table. These precautions were necessary, yet we noticed that many customers were opting to stay home, likely due to concerns about the virus. It was a challenging situation, and there wasn't much we could do to change their minds about venturing out. Mateo and I discussed the possibility of starting a delivery service to adapt to the changing circumstances, as people were still cautious about dining out. We hoped that by offering delivery, we could continue serving our dishes to the community, even if they preferred to eat at home. The candy store next door was experiencing similar struggles, a reminder that the pandemic was taking a toll on everyone, particularly businesses in the service industry. Over the next few weeks, our customer numbers dwindled further, causing even Mateo to grow anxious about our future. One day, Josh burst into the restaurant, visibly upset, and urgently showed us a video on his phone. The footage was alarming. It depicted a cockroach being placed into a bowl of ramen at our counter. The video, titled "Delicious Cockroach Ramen," prominently featured our restaurant's logo, and although the person in the video had their face blurred, Mateo's distinctive physique made it clear he was being framed as the culprit. Our kitchen was recognizable in the background, confirming the setting was indeed our restaurant. The comments on the video were filled with derogatory remarks, mocking our cleanliness and even dubbing us a bug diner. It was evident that someone had maliciously edited photos or videos to fabricate this damaging narrative. This act of defamation was heart-wrenching. All we ever wanted was to share our love for food with our patrons, and to face such a baseless attack was devastating. We were determined not to let this go. Despite the shock, we opened the restaurant the next day, hoping for some semblance of normalcy. Usually, a few early customers would trickle in, but that day, no one came. I looked out at Main Street from inside the restaurant and noticed people glancing and smirking as they passed by. Stepping outside, I saw groups of people gathered around, some taking photos and others whispering. Fearing another social media smear, I rushed back inside to check the latest post. Sure enough, there were recent uploads showing the vicinity of our restaurant and the nearby subway station, with captions hinting at the location of the so-called Bug Chinese restaurant. Given that we were the only Chinese restaurant near that subway station, the connection was unmistakable. This situation was more than just a challenge. It was a crisis that threatened the very essence of our family business. We had to find a way to clear our name and restore the reputation that we had lovingly built over the years. Despite my reluctance, I couldn't help but check the comments on the social media posts that were blatantly referring to our restaurant. People were making harsh comments, recalling their past experiences with our food and expressing disbelief and disgust, falsely believing we served bugs. One person wrote, "Isn't that the Bug Chinese place near the west exit of the station? I've eaten their fried rice before. I'm never going there again." Another lamented, "I used to think their food was good, but this is just disgusting." It was clear that such damaging rumors were the reason our customer base had dwindled. Heartbroken by the online backlash, we made the difficult decision to temporarily close our restaurant. A few days into the closure, I stepped outside early one morning to take out the trash, only to find garbage strewn across the front of our restaurant. As I began to clean up, my heart sank when I noticed "Bug-infested place" spray-painted in bold red letters across the entrance shutter. Overwhelmed by the sight, I dropped the broom and stood there, lost in despair. Returning home dejected, I found Mateo distressed and slumped over. Concerned, I asked him what was wrong. He shared that one of our suppliers, who had been with us since his father's time, had decided to sever ties with our restaurant. The reason was painfully clear. A photo of a delivery box bearing the supplier's name, placed unassumingly at our back entrance, had been circulated online. This led to them being harassed with calls condemning their association with our bug-filled restaurant. To protect them from further trouble, Mateo had made the heart-wrenching decision to discontinue our long-standing business relationship. Mateo looked at me, his expression one of deep sorrow, and suggested, "Mia, it's okay. Thank you for everything. Let's close the restaurant and find a quiet place to start over." The idea of shutting down what we had built and cherished seemed unbearable. I couldn't accept giving up so easily. Seeing the somber faces of my husband and mother-in-law, I felt a surge of determination. "I'll start working," I declared, urging Mateo to keep the restaurant open. "This is the place your father poured his heart into. Please, let's not let it go. We can get through this." We spent the night discussing our options, fueled by a mix of despair and resolve. Mateo reassured me, "We'll try a little longer." With renewed vigor, We found a new supplier, and I took a job at a nearby office to help support our financial recovery. Mateo introduced new items to the menu and focused on providing personal, heartfelt service to our remaining loyal customers. Despite the adversity we faced, we were not ready to give up on the legacy that meant so much to us and to the community we serve. The financial strain from the false rumors had forced us to make a heart-wrenching decision. We could no longer afford to pay Josh, our dedicated part-timer. With a promise to call him back when things stabilized, Mateo and my mother-in-law stepped in to manage the restaurant while I sought employment elsewhere to help support our family. One evening after returning from work, my mother-in-law, wearing a solemn expression, called me into the living room for a serious discussion. As I sat down, she shared some distressing news about our daughter, Lily. She had been crying in her room earlier, and upon comforting her, my mother-in-law learned that Lily was being bullied at school. The situation had escalated that morning when Lily discovered a plastic bag filled with dead roaches inside her desk. When she instinctively threw it to the floor, a classmate cruelly remarked, "Don't throw that here. Use it in your restaurant since it's a bug Chinese place, right?" My heart sank as my mother-in-law handed me a piece of paper that had been stuck to Lily's backpack, which cruelly labeled her Bug Girl. Lily had unknowingly brought this home, and the realization had left her inconsolable. The nickname spawned by the malicious online rumors about our restaurant had become a chant among her peers, constantly calling her Bug Girl and taunting her with images from the fabricated social media posts. Despite her attempts to refute the claims, the pictures had convinced her classmates, and nobody believed her truth. The bullying had reached a breaking point when Lily found the derogatory note on her backpack. Later that night, I went to her room and held my sobbing daughter close, comforting her as best as I could, apologizing for the pain she was enduring because of our family situation. We cried together until she fell asleep, her distress palpable and heartbreaking. Following that night, Lily couldn't face going to school and started to skip her classes. I decided to take action and met with her teacher, explaining the severity of the bullying. He promised to address the issue immediately and asked me to keep him informed about any developments at home. As I left the school, I noticed someone had written "bug" over her locker nameplate. With tears streaming down my face, I tried desperately to scrub the word off with a wet wipe, but the mark was stubborn. Back at home, the harassment towards our restaurant persisted, and the stress began to take a significant toll on our family. Lily withdrew to her room, becoming increasingly isolated. My mother-in-law, visibly stressed, started visiting the hospital frequently and began taking medication. Meanwhile, Mateo, unable to cope with the mounting pressure, resorted to drinking heavily each night, often falling asleep right after. Amidst this family crisis, I received notice from my workplace about a mandatory all-staff training session. Despite the chaos at home, I was obligated to attend, leaving me torn between my professional responsibilities and the deepening personal turmoil. The atmosphere in our home grew heavier each day, weighed down by silence and the shadows of our struggles. Attending the training wasn't something I was keen on, given everything that was happening, but I couldn't risk losing my job, so I reluctantly agreed to participate in the 3-day workshop. On the second evening, after everyone had finished dinner and was dispersing to their rooms, one of the executives pulled me aside. He said he needed to discuss some work matters and invited me into his hotel room. Normally, I would never enter a man's room alone, but I felt overwhelmed and vulnerable, so I followed him, assuming it was strictly professional. Once inside, he offered me a drink and soon brought up the struggles of my restaurant, revealing that my business woes were known even here. Exhausted and on edge, I just listened. He then handed me an envelope from the table, explaining it contained a job offer and $1,000 as a bonus if I accepted. As he placed his hand on my shoulder, I froze. Hearing the offer, part of me considered how much that money could help my family. But then he whispered something about never imagining I had a child. The mention of a child snapped me back to reality. Visions of my husband, my mother-in-law, and Lily flashed through my mind. I immediately pushed his hand away and fled the room. In a rush, I grabbed my belongings and left the training facility without looking back. Outside, it was raining heavily. The cold rain mixed with my tears as I ran towards the nearest station, berating myself for even stepping into that room. Could it have been the desperation for money that clouded my judgment? No, that wasn't me. I felt utterly foolish and guilty, especially thinking of how this would betray Josh's trust and the commitment we had to our family and employees. As I ran, my phone rang. It was Lily. Her voice was frantic as she told me that her grandmother had kicked her out of the house. I felt a surge of panic. Lily said her father had been asleep since the day before and wasn't waking up. I urged her to stay put and raced home as fast as I could, calling my house and Mateo repeatedly, but no one answered. When I finally reached home, I found Lily sitting outside the door, next to the faint remnants of the spray-painted slander. She was holding a kid's cell phone, the only thing her grandmother had given her when she told her to leave. My heart raced as I unlocked the door and ushered her inside. The house was eerily dark. I sent Lily to her room and turned on the living room lights, only to discover my mother-in-law lying motionless next to the table. I rushed to her side, calling her name in a panic, hoping she would respond. When I discovered my mother-in-law unresponsive, a chilling sense of urgency overcame me. Beside her, a glass with residual water and an empty packet of pills laid ominously on the table, painting a grim picture of what might have happened. Fearing the worst in overdose, I frantically dialed 911. After calling for help, I hurried upstairs to check on Mateo, who I found slumped over his desk, unresponsive. Shaking him vigorously, he slowly came to and explained groggily that he had been working on bills last night when his mother brought him a cup of hot coffee. After drinking it, he was overcome with an unexplainable sleepiness. With concern mounting, I relayed the dire situation with his mother, and we both rushed downstairs where he tried desperately to rouse her. As emergency responders attended to her, I noticed a note left on the table, penned in shaky handwriting. It read, "Mateo, Mia, I'm truly grateful for both of you for taking care of this place. I can't continue here anymore. I haven't touched my husband's life insurance, so with my savings, you both can start a new life somewhere else. Please be happy. Thank you truly from the bottom of my heart." Moments later, paramedics arrived and quickly assessed that she was in a coma. They rushed her to the hospital. Leaving Lily at home, Mateo and I followed in a state of shock and despair. At the hospital, they managed to stabilize her by pumping her stomach, and after 3 harrowing days, she regained consciousness and was moved to a regular room. In the hospital room, overcome with emotion, I asked her, "Why did you try to end your life?" "We can't be happy without you." My voice broke as the tears came, unable to hold back the flood of emotions. Mateo sat silently by her side while she, too, began to cry. The room was filled with a heavy, somber air as we all grappled with the depth of our despair. Later, she explained that she had drugged Mateo's coffee to make him sleep through her intended departure. She had sent Lily away to spare her the sight and to ensure I would come home quickly. This calculated act of desperation was her distorted attempt to free us from the burden she felt she had become. In the days following, as Mateo and I contemplated the closure of our once thriving restaurant, Josh, our former part-timer, came to visit. "Long time no see," I greeted him. He brought news. The perpetrator behind the damaging social media posts had been identified. It was the blonde college senior who had previously caused a scene at our restaurant. His actions had been driven by a vendetta against us. Despite the revelation, the damage to our reputation and spirits was profound. "We're thinking of closing the shop," Mateo said with a heavy sigh, his gaze lingering around the empty restaurant. "After all the bad publicity, it's hard to bounce back. We've had our share of troubles and are just worn out. We did our best, but it seems like it wasn't enough," he added apologetically. "If we ever get back on track, please come visit us again," I told Josh, holding on to a sliver of hope that perhaps one day we might reclaim the joy and community our restaurant once brought to our lives. Forcing a smile, I tried to mask the despair as Josh looked at me earnestly and said, "I owe a lot to you too. I won't let this shop go under, I promise." His determination was palpable as he stood up suddenly, his expression steely, and then he swiftly left our home. A few days later, while retrieving the morning newspaper, Mateo found several letters mixed in with the mail. Initially skeptical, thinking they might be another set of pranks, he was about to discard them when one postcard caught his eye. It read, "I miss the ramen from your restaurant." Intrigued, he began reading the other letters, and to our surprise, each one expressed hope and support for our shop's revival. It was a moment of unexpected solidarity that puzzled us, as we couldn't fathom where all these letters had come from. The following day, Josh returned with a broad grin, announcing that blonde dude is quitting school. When we pressed him for details, he explained that the negative fallout from the social media post had backfired on the blonde student. Josh had taken it upon himself to highlight the criticisms of that post, rallying support against it. His efforts had sparked a wider recognition of the injustice. And soon, a movement to identify the troublemaker gained momentum. Josh and a few of his college friends had been instrumental in this turn of events. They started by sharing images of a restaurant, speculating that the culprit might be from that neighborhood. During their investigation, they heard about a blonde student bragging about how his post had gone viral. Remembering this student's previous disruptive behavior at our restaurant, Josh suspected a link and began digging into his social media activities. They hit pay dirt when they found a post from the student complaining about our restaurant's hand sanitizer policy, which matched his behavior during his visit. The pieces clicked together, confirming his identity. Armed with this information, Josh was determined to expose the student's malicious actions. He discussed the situation with a friend who knew a popular TikTok specializing in current events, with a following of 620,000 subscribers. The TikTok agreed to create a video detailing how a beloved local restaurant was being undermined by the student's vindictive actions. The video took off instantly, propelled by the TikTok's significant influence. The student's social media accounts faced overwhelming backlash, leading him to delete his accounts. But the damage was done, his actions had been widely exposed, and he found himself in an inescapable bind. After Josh had first shared the information, a sharp-eyed netizen managed to identify the blonde student and posted about it. This chain of events rallied the community around our restaurant, showing us a wave of support we hadn't anticipated, and renewing our hope in a time filled with despair. As the situation escalated, the details of the blonde student's life were widely disseminated across social media platforms. His age, college, home address, photographs, and even the name of the company where he had recently secured a job offer were all exposed. The backlash from the online community was severe and unrelenting. The student began to receive threatening letters at his home. A prominent TikTok, known for stirring controversy, released a video condemning the student's actions against the Chinese restaurant. This video further inflamed public sentiment, leading to several confrontations. The TikTok and others frequently ambushed the student's parents at their home, aggressively questioning their parenting skills and filming these encounters. Police intervention became necessary as people, appearing to be content creators, loitered around the student's residence, filming his family's movements and scrutinizing every detail of their lives. This intense scrutiny included their mail and any interactions they had outside their home. When the blonde student finally lost his composure and confronted one of the TikToks, this confrontation was also captured on camera and swiftly uploaded, adding fuel to the already raging fire. This public spectacle effectively prevented him from any further retaliation. The repercussions of these events were devastating for the student and his family, who faced continual harassment. The university he attended was not spared from the controversy. Its website became a forum for public outrage, with numerous complaints about the student's behavior and scathing remarks questioning the institution's credibility in educating responsible individuals. Comments like, "Does your university really send out such lousy students into society like flies?" and demands for the dean's opinion were rampant. The university administration called the student and his parents in for a meeting to verify the facts, warning them that any continuation of these issues online would be a significant nuisance and could force the university to take decisive actions against him. Moreover, the incident reached the company that had extended a job offer to the student. Amidst a flood of public outcry, many contacted the company, questioning the appropriateness of employing someone involved in such a scandal and suggesting they reconsider their offer. Influenced by the intense public pressure and the negative attention, the company allegedly rescinded the job offer. The student's father's business also came under scrutiny. His company's website was bombarded with similar complaints, and he found himself having to respond to inquiries about the incident, further illustrating the widespread impact of the student's initial actions. The family, caught in the relentless glare of public scrutiny and online vitriol, faced a series of ongoing challenges that seemed to have no end in sight. The scandal surrounding the blonde student had profound repercussions that extended far beyond his own immediate actions. His father, in line with company policies, received a stern warning to keep personal dramas from affecting the business. Additionally, the student's older sister faced her own set of challenges when an anonymous letter detailing her brother's misconduct was sent to her fiancé's home. The revelations led to the unfortunate cancellation of her engagement. In the wake of these events, the student eventually withdrew from university and took up part-time work, but the strain on his family was unmistakable. Their home became a site of frequent loud arguments and the distressing sounds of objects being broken. Eventually, the student left his family home, and his current whereabouts remain unknown. Josh, reflecting on the situation, acknowledged learning a painful lesson about the perils of the internet and the rapid escalation of online actions into real-world consequences. Despite the turmoil, the outpouring of support from the community, including encouraging letters and a viral video from a popular TikTok advocating for our restaurant, inspired us to reopen our doors. The TikTok's endorsement brought a new wave of younger customers, rejuvenating our business. Even my daughter saw a silver lining when her teacher informed us that her classmates wanted to apologize. During a school visit, the students expressed their regrets and their new understanding, sparked partly by the same TikTok's influence, showing just how impactful digital platforms can be. With the restaurant bustling again, I left my office job to devote more time to our family business. Josh resumed his role as a part-time worker, and even my mother-in-law found herself helping out more often, drawn by the surge of patrons. Our family has been deeply touched by the community's support. Every day, as I greet our customers with a warm smile, I'm filled with gratitude, hoping they enjoy the culinary delights my husband prepares. It's a testament to the resilience and unity that we've experienced, reminding us all of the strength found in community and second chances.